Thank you for watching our video blog on near-death experiences. Suzanne and I have been near-death experience researchers for many years, although neither of us has had an NDE. This particular blog series is about our recent study of prophetic visions in NDEs. There are links listed in the video description to our website and to the full presentation of our study. Hi. In this post, we want to address another common question regarding prophetic visions. What does it mean if the event doesn't ever occur? According to NDErs, the biggest reason why predictions fail to materialize is the free will choices of individuals. An NDEr quoted by NDE researcher Margot Gray, page 123, says, "I was also shown events that are likely to happen in the near future, but was made to understand that nothing is absolutely fixed, and that everything depends on how we choose to use our own free will, that even those events that are already predestined can be changed or modified by a change in our own way of relating to them." Margot Gray continues later on, "In fact, many NDErs stress that events can always be affected by right human action and prayers to God for His intervention." NDEr Tom Beck, on page 113, says, "Nothing is completely predestined. These events can be averted or mitigated, even massive natural disasters." Beck goes on to say, "Occasionally I have visions of disasters that do not take place. I've been told that this is because people have free will and sometimes change their minds. I take assurance knowing that the vision can be changed, and the outcome does not have to be as I first saw. It can be modified by the choices we make. Maybe that is a lesson to be learned, that the visions are real, but the outcome does not have to be. So perhaps the disastrous visions I see for the USA do not have to happen. Perhaps we can come together, pray, and put God first again, and save ourselves and our country." And finally, several NDErs say, "The best prophetic visions are the ones that do not happen." And the other major factor cited by NDErs that can affect future events is prayer. To begin with, NDErs know that prayer is a powerful spiritual intervention. They frequently see the effects of prayers during their NDEs. For example, in his NDE during coma, Eben Alexander, page 108, saw the faces of 6 people who were saying things that he could not make out. In fact, these people were praying for him at this time during his coma. Alexander recognized who they were only after he had recovered. Also, NDE researcher PMH Atwater reports in her book, page 65, that many child NDErs see prayers in their NDEs as beams of golden or rainbow light, like long rods or arrows, coming to them from the people saying the prayers. Other NDErs report that prayers appear as sparkles or bubbles of light rising to them during their NDE. So it's not surprising that NDErs report that prayer can be effective in preventing or mitigating the foreseen events. Tom Beck, page 175, says, "After 9/11, people came together, and we prayed together by the thousands, hundreds of thousands. I know there were planned attacks that did not take place because of our praying. I know because I saw the attacks that were to take place. I had such hope that other attacks I saw were not going to happen, but they did. We grew weary of the war. We quit praying." And NDEr Ned Doherty, page 79, was told that the world could be saved not by its leaders, but by prayer groups throughout the world. I was told that the prayers of a group of 20 could save a nation from war. So, given that we have free will and that prayer can be effective in changing an event, what can we conclude when a foreseen event fails to occur? Did the people involved choose to act differently? Was there an intervention through prayer or other means? Or was the prophetic vision simply wrong? Indeed, it's very difficult to determine even whether a foreseen event was actually going to occur. But the particular qualities of prophetic visions, being vivid, intense, and compelling, would argue against the foreseen event being simply a calculated guess, an emotional projection, or wishful thinking. More likely, if the foreseen event did not occur, there was some change in the circumstances. Someone may have changed their mind, or there was some other kind of intervention, like prayer, to avert or mitigate the event. But it's also difficult to establish evidence of an intervention. Indeed, the whole situation of the event can defy objective analysis. For example, in our presentation, we describe the case of Tom Sawyer, page 135, in which he describes preventing a mid-air collision through prayer. It would be very hard to validate any aspect of Tom's account. Was there, in fact, a near miss of two planes on a collision course over Florida at that time? Did one pilot sit up and see the other plane just in time? If that happened, was it because of the prayers by Tom and others? So, with a foreseen event that did not happen and no evidence of intervention is readily apparent, we can't make a judgment either way. The evidence of the intervention could be hidden or spiritual in nature, like prayer, or the prophetic vision itself was simply wrong. There is one well-known instance of a predicted event that did not occur. In his 1984 book, Ken Ring, starting at page 197, presented an analysis of 16 NDErs' prophetic visions. The broad outlines of each prophetic vision seem to conform to a common general model or pattern for the future. Ring, very provisionally, proposed a model in which, in the 1980s, there would be massive geophysical changes and disturbances in weather patterns and food supplies. The world economic system will collapse, and the possibility of nuclear war or nuclear accident is very great. All of these events will be followed by a new era in human history, marked by human brotherhood, universal love, and world peace. In particular, Ring quoted two NDErs whose sense was that there would be a nuclear war, and two additional NDErs who had a presentiment of a nuclear holocaust but could not claim it as certain. The most likely year cited was 1988. In hindsight, one can argue that none of the events described in the prophetic visions for the 1980s has occurred, even counting up to today. Massive geophysical changes, world economic collapse, nuclear war. In particular, nuclear war did not occur in 1988. Was there a change in the circumstances of the Cold War at that time? Was there some sort of change of heart among world leaders? Mikhail Gorbachev was the Communist Party General Secretary of the Soviet Union from March 1985 to 1991. From Wikipedia, we learn that Gorbachev believed significant reform of the Soviet Union was necessary. It is interesting that the nuclear accident at Chernobyl in April 1986 helped Gorbachev see the level of reform needed of the Soviet system and foreign policy. He withdrew from the Soviet-Afghan War and embarked on summits with U.S. President Ronald Reagan to limit nuclear weapons and end the Cold War. In April 1986, Gorbachev publicly proposed a three-stage program for abolishing the world's nuclear weapons by the end of the 20th century. At a summit with Reagan in Reykjavik, Iceland, in October 1986, Gorbachev was willing to offer concessions, including a 50% reduction in Soviet long-range nuclear missiles. Both leaders agreed with the shared goal of abolishing nuclear weapons, and in December 1987, Gorbachev and Reagan signed the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, one of the highest points of Gorbachev's career. So it is reasonable to conclude that Mikhail Gorbachev's leadership and actions, as well as President Reagan's equal desire for peace, significantly reduced the chance that nuclear war would occur in 1988. So when a prophetic vision doesn't occur, we can say that people may have changed their minds and acted differently to prevent the event. Or there may have been some other kind of intervention, like prayer. Or the prophetic vision was simply wrong. In the absence of clear evidence of changed behavior or some other intervention, the question can't be decided. Finally, if there is no direct evidence, can we infer whether prayers were effective? Suzanne and I feel that the powerful effects of prayer can be inferred to have helped, even in events that appear to be inevitable catastrophes. For example, with the apparently doomed Apollo 13 mission to the moon in April 1970. From Wikipedia, we learn that an oxygen tank failed 2 days into the mission, and the service module soon lost all its oxygen needed for breathing and generating electrical power. Command module power had to be shut down to conserve its remaining resources for re-entry, forcing the crew to transfer to the lunar module as a lifeboat. Instead of landing on the moon, the crew looped around the moon in the crippled spacecraft, in a dark, chilly, wet cabin with a shortage of potable water. Numerous technical adjustments had to be made, including rigging up a system to remove carbon dioxide from the air in the lunar module. The rescue received more public attention than most space flights to that point, other than the first moon landing on Apollo 11 in July 1969. There were worldwide headlines, and people surrounded television sets to get the latest developments, offered by networks who interrupted their regular programming for bulletins. Pope Paul VI led a congregation of 10,000 people in praying for the astronauts' safe return. 10 times that number also offered prayers at a religious festival in India. The United States Senate on April 14th passed a resolution urging businesses to pause at 9 p.m. that evening to allow for employee prayer. This was the exact time for the critical course correction burn to get the crew back to Earth. One can reasonably conclude that hundreds of millions of people all over the world were praying for the safe return of the Apollo 13 astronauts. Given that NDErs see and feel the positive effects of prayer during their NDEs, it is also quite reasonable to conclude that the prayers of hundreds of millions of people helped Apollo 13 return safely. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to our channel. We'd love to hear what you think, and we'll try our best to respond to your comments.